Microsoft announced way back in early summer 2012 that the Windows 8 versions were going to be simplified, because in the past they've kind of fallen into this trap of offering 7 or 8 different versions of their operating systems, and everybody gets all confused about what they need and why and how to license it and so forth. So there are 4 editions of Windows 8, and you just need to be aware of these. First of all, just plain old basic vanilla Windows 8. When you see that, you'll know that that's kind of the entry-level Windows 8. Then there's a Windows 8 Pro, a Windows 8 Enterprise, and a Windows 8 RT. Let's take a quick look at each one of these. Windows 8, this is the consumer version of Windows 8. This is what you're going to find most of the time preloaded on the laptops and the desktops out there in the big box computer stores and on the websites and so forth. This includes most of your business type features, and by that we mean drive encryption, group policy functionality. A lot of the virtualization support simply won't be there. This is for your basic user who fires it up, writes email, uses Word or Office, PowerPoint, Outlook, those sorts of things, and manages their photos and their social life on their computer. So this is all the basics. It's a great system, but it's the basics. Windows 8 Pro, notice Microsoft's wording here, is designed for the PC enthusiast. This does include some business type features like BitLocker encryption for the drive, virtualization support, domain connectivity, so you can connect to a domain and log in with Windows 8 Pro. It does support group policy, so you can work with those things. Then the Windows 8 Enterprise version is designed for the corporate environment from the ground up. You have management and deployment features built in and functioning. There are advanced security functionalities in this version, enhanced mobility scenarios. So that's going to be the Enterprise version. Now Windows RT, Windows 8 RT is going to be the version that you just kind of get, but you get this with your tablets. You don't go out and buy this. This is the ARM version. Now what is ARM? ARM is an advanced RISC machine. And what is RISC, you're saying? Okay, well, RISC is Reduced Instruction Set Computer. In English, the ARM version means that it's using a CPU that is an ARM CPU, and those are used to power mobile phones, tablets, those sorts of things. Hence the RISC, Reduced Instruction Set Computer. These CPUs are designed to be smaller, more lightweight, light duty. They run on fewer instructions, they don't get as hot, they don't consume as much battery, that sort of thing. Now Windows 8 RT will not be sold separately. It'll be pre-installed on ARM devices. You can take that to mean tablets, smartphones, those kinds of things. Okay, so Windows 8 RT, is going to be an operating system that you get with something and not something you buy and install on something. And that's a quick look at the 4 versions of Windows 8. When you start trying to determine whether you're going to run out and buy a copy of Windows 8 and upgrade your Windows 7 to this to get the slick new Metro look and all that, it's going to pop into your mind, well, wait a minute now, what are the system requirements on Windows 8? Because historically, every time there's a new operating system, I've got to go buy, a chunk of RAM and put in the machine. My hard disk might need to be larger. I may need an updated graphics system and so forth. Well, here's the bottom line on Windows 8 requirements. If your computer runs Windows 7 or Vista, it will run Windows 8. This is one of the places Microsoft worked very hard. They really did their best to make sure that this operating system either required the same as Windows 7 or even a little less in some instances. Okay, the little less is a little iffy, but however, if it runs Windows 7, you're going to like it on Windows 8. Now, provided you're liking it on Windows 7, okay? But the Metro experience is what's going to be most seriously impacted by hardware. So if you don't have enough RAM, then your Metro experience is going to be not as smooth, not as responsive as you would like. But again, if you've got a good running machine on 7, you're going to like what you get on 8. So let's take a look at the hardware system requirements that Microsoft's published on Windows 8. Well, first of all, for the processor, the CPU, you need 1 gigahertz or faster. As always, More faster is more better. All right, a little grammar there for you. On the memory side, you need at least 1 gigabyte for 32 bits and 2 gigabytes for 64-bit. Now again, these are requirements, and the recommends are going to be higher than this. For the hard disk, you need 16 gigabytes of free space for the 32-bit version, 20 gigabytes of free space for the 64-bit version of Windows 8. Again, nothing is really drastically blown out of the water here from prior versions. And then on the graphics side, you just need a DirectX 9 device with a WDDM 1.0 driver or better. And that's pretty much it. Microsoft's not really touting any kind of particular onboard graphics, megabytes or gigabytes or anything. It's just DirectX 9 device, WDDM 1.0 or better. As usual on all these things, these are the requirements. More is better, but I will tell you, when we went through all the beta phases on Windows 8, it's just now been released, it's just now gone to RTM, but through all those beta versions, the nerds and all those guys were out there loading this up on machines that were way under the hardware requirements. And again, the only thing they really complained about, the only thing that really suffered from not meeting Microsoft system requirements was the Metro apps functionality. So anyway, that's your system requirements. The good news, if you're running Windows 7 and you like it, you can upgrade to Windows 8 and you're going to be just fine. As you prepare to install Windows 8, there are some installation options that you have to choose from when you start to consider how exactly you want to implement Windows 8 into your particular computing environment. Now, there are 4 main options that Microsoft talks about, and a couple of these are rather interesting and new to Windows 8. First is a clean install to a hard disk. Now this is not new, this is the standard, and this is where we're just going to put the Windows 8 installation media in. We're going to tell it to do a clean install. We're going to point it to our partition, and it's pretty neat stuff. Then there's upgrade from Windows 7. Then we can use virtual machines to run Windows 8, and then the last option of the 4 is a dual boot. And we'll talk more about each of those in just a minute. Now, Windows to Go is an option, and of course that's where we run the entire Windows operating system off of a USB device. This can be a thumb drive, it can be an external USB drive. It does support USB 3.0, which is much faster than 2.0. It's an option, but I'm not going to go into it very deep here because it is an advanced technique and it's not as simple and straightforward and wizard driven, if you will, on installation as the other 4 options. Now here's the main thing I want you to hear. On any of these options, always back your computer up before you begin any installation action. There's only about 36 million things that can go wrong, and it could hang an installation and lose your data, corrupt your data, cause all kind of weird problems for you. So always get a good clean backup before you start any installation. Now that first type, the clean install to a hard disk, the main thing you need to know here is, first of all, whatever partition you install the operating system to, when you do a clean install, it is going to erase all the data on that particular partition. This does, however, ensure a totally new, totally clean environment, unencumbered by any kind of software, operational, even driver issues that you may have had before. If you've got a Windows 7 environment that has been, horribly infected with malware, spyware, if you've got one that just doesn't seem to be behaving right and you can't figure out why, I wouldn't necessarily upgrade that. A good clean install might be the way to go. Now you'll also have to reinstall all your apps, and you'll have to make sure that you back up all your data before you begin, because it's going to wipe everything. Now you can upgrade from Windows 7, and this will preserve your apps and data, and I would refer you to Microsoft.com for specific information on upgrading and what versions you can upgrade from and to. But the general rule is, if you have a legal copy of Windows 7 and then you buy a legal copy of Windows 8, you shouldn't have any problems upgrading from that. This will again preserve your apps and data. It replaces the Windows 7 operating system files with Windows 8. It will put old Windows 7 files that you might need in a folder called Windows Old, and you can go find that stuff. Now, virtual machine, this is one that Microsoft is really throwing into the mix this time in ways that they've never done before. Understand that companies are really jumping behind Windows 8, and really fairly early on. As a matter of fact, before the consumer product was released, VMware officially announced support for Windows 8 in both their Fusion product, and Fusion, of course, is the VMware that runs on the Mac or the Apple platform, and version 5 supports all Windows 8 editions. If you try to install it in version 4, usually you won't even get past the original boot screen on trying to install Windows 8. It hangs and keeps restarting. But if you've got Fusion 5, it'll load up and it'll smoke pretty well. Now, early on there were some issues with installing VMware tools, but those for the most part are taken care of now. Workstation 9 officially supports Windows 8, and I have loaded it on the Fusion for the Mac, and it works fantastic. Extremely quick, extremely responsive, and really can't tell any difference from running it in a virtual environment on VMware or running it on my laptop. It's equal in both places. And you'll find similar things in Workstation 9. Folks I've talked to very happy running Windows 8 in a Workstation 9 virtual machine. VirtualBox, which is Oracle's open source product, is getting mixed results. Now, I haven't tried to load it personally into VirtualBox. I've talked to people who have. Some say it loaded up and it ran just excellent. Others are seeing weird, bizarre, irritating little errors, but one thing I can guarantee you, VirtualBox support for Windows 8 will improve over time. It's a great product. I've used it quite a bit and still use it. But for now, the early favorite for Windows 8 is VMware, but VMware has been on top of Windows 8 for quite a while now, and it really works well in those environments. Now, the one that Microsoft is really pushing and encouraging is Dual Boot, for good reason. It's a great way to get acquainted with a really new, really different feeling operating system in Windows 8, and you can still run your old Windows 7 system when you need to, get back into the familiar neighborhood and really get some work done. But trust me, and I know I sound like a broken record and a used car salesman in this course, but you're not going to run Windows 8 very long before you just simply won't want to go back to Windows 7. Now, a dual boot is a great option also if you're especially on a laptop and your CPU doesn't support virtualization. If your laptop's more than 2 or 3 years old, then it's a good chance that your CPU doesn't support virtualization, or it's just kind of buggy, or it's slow. And if you're interested in dual booting Windows 8, I just so happen to have a couple of videos in this course. Just look for these. There's 2 of them. It's a 2-part video. They're entitled Dual Booting Windows 8. So go look for those videos, and that should help you get started there. So anyway, that's your installation options. A lot of ways to go. I would strongly encourage you to look at either using a virtual machine, a virtual environment, or a dual boot environment to work with Windows 8. It really kind of helps with the comfort level. It gives you a chance to get back home to Windows 7. But again, after you run Windows 8 just a little bit, I really doubt you're going to be jumping back to Windows 7 very much. So anyway, that's your 4 main installation options on Windows 8. One aspect of Windows 8 that is somewhat different from previous versions is the use of a tool that we've come to know as the Upgrade Advisor. Now, in most of the previous operating system releases, Microsoft released a separate Upgrade Advisor tool that you could download. It was maybe 5 to 6 megabytes in size. You could run this tool and it would tell you what aspects of your current setup, your current computer, might be a problem with the new operating system. For Windows 8, Microsoft is advising that the Upgrade Advisor is part of the installation process for Windows 8, and it runs automatically as you install Windows 8. And so they're maintaining that there's not going to be a separate Upgrade Advisor tool released. And this is kind of a hot question out there amongst everyone as they start to think about moving to Windows 8. And this idea that it's part of the installation files is somewhat disconcerting for a lot of people. Now, one thing you can do if you have a question, although keep in mind The official Microsoft answer is if your machine runs Windows 7, it will 99.999% of the time run Windows 8, and usually most of the time it will run Windows 8 faster than it ran Windows 7. And benchmarks and real-world tests continue to bear that out as we move on into Windows 8. There is a tool that Microsoft released. It was called the Windows Installation Compatibility Advisor Report, and this was actually released back in the middle of the summer of 2012 when the Windows 8 Consumer Preview was out. And when we were in that version, it was released. I've put this in your work files folder. So if you want to play with this, or if you have a computer for some reason that you think may not be compatible, you can run this. But do keep in mind that the farther we get from, say, early summer 2012, the less reliable this thing could be. But so far, it's staying pretty dead on, and a lot of people are tending to use this thing. Now, the one thing I would advise you to do for any kinds of upgrade news information is check Microsoft.com. And this is the link, and you can just go to Microsoft.com and just do a search for Compatibility Center, and you will see this. And they have all kinds of compatibility notes and information on all of their products, but you will see Windows 8 is going to be a hot topic on that Compatibility Center homepage for quite a while. So go out to Microsoft.com, do a search on Compatibility Center, and go take a look at that web page and see if there's anything developing on Windows 8 going forward. But for now, the official Microsoft word is there will not be a separate upgrade advisor for Windows 8. It's built into the installation, and this shouldn't be a major problem anyway, because other than the Windows 8/Metro style start screen and functionality, almost everything you see under the hood there from the desktop on down is basically a Windows 7 architecture and environment. So anyway, that's the latest news on the Upgrade Advisor. Welcome to part 1 of installing Windows 8. Now, when you get ready to install Windows 8, there's going to be a few things that you notice, and you're always going to start with, first of all, getting a good, clean backup of whatever you're installing Windows 8 onto, especially if you're upgrading from a Windows 7 machine, or if you're installing a clean install over Windows 7. Keep in mind you're going to wipe everything away. If you're putting this into a virtual machine, if you're putting it in a dual boot situation, again, just make sure that you get a good clean install. And keep in mind, in Windows 7 you can do a backup in the form of creating a system image and then just restore that entire image later. And a great trick, I would strongly encourage you, go to your local computer store, some of the big box technology stores. You can either get out on the internet and find them in all kinds of places, all kinds of websites. Just get one of these little external USB drives and plug that thing into USB port on your machine. Direct Windows 7 to make a copy or a system image onto that USB drive, and it'll take it maybe a couple of hours. Then once you're done, set the USB drive off somewhere and go install Windows 8. And if the worst happens, you just hook your USB drive back up and restore. So anyway, that's the first step on installing Windows 8. Get a good backup of your old operating system. Then insert the installation media into your computer. Now, for now, let's just assume it's a disk. You can download, get an ISO, create a disk, and anyway, you're going to install that, and it's going to take you to a screen that looks like this. And it's going to ask you what language you want to use, the time format here, the keyboard or input method, and it's going to default to English in the United States on this. And when you get all that done, you can just click Next. All right, and then it's going to tell you that you're ready to install once you've answered those questions. And I don't know if you can see it very well here on this screenshot. And I didn't do the install because you're seeing the same thing here. I basically end up pausing and starting and pausing and starting, and so you can see the same type information here. But notice when you get to the Install Now screen, this right here is a big clue for you later on. Notice Repair Your Computer. if you ever start to have weird, bizarre functionalities on the operating system, it's getting really slow, things that are causing it to just lock up and things just aren't behaving right, you can always kick off the installation again, and when you get to this second screen, just click on Repair Your Computer, and it will go through a repair process and take care of a lot of issues. Once you go through that, it's now time to enter the product key to activate Windows, and you want to make sure you have a good legal key here. Keep in mind it will be checked. There will be problems if you're using this somewhere else. It's going to cause genuine licensing problems on the other machine and create prompts and all sorts of things. Okay, so anyway, you will input your product key, and then you will move on to the next screen. Now the license terms, these are those long novels that nobody ever reads, and you'll notice on this one I was installing Windows 8 Pro, and you can scroll down through all this, and you'll just have to check that you accept the license terms, and then you will hit next. Now once that happens, this starts to become a fairly important part of the install. Now notice this is where we're going to choose to upgrade. We can install Windows and keep our file settings and applications. Alright, notice this option is only available when a supported version of Windows is already running on the computer. But again, if you're running any version of Windows 7 or Vista, you're probably going to be okay. The farther you go back from there, you start to have problems. A clean install is a great way to get a good, clean, fresh copy of Windows 8. You're not bringing any problems in functionalities and so forth forward from Windows 7. Just do understand this is going to wipe the partition clean when you do that, and you're going to lose everything that was there, and you're only going to end up with a new copy of Windows 8. All your applications are going to have to be reinstalled. You know, any special drivers you had loaded will have to be re-added. Printers will have to be added and all that sort of thing, so just be aware of that. Once you make your choice there, it is going to ask you, especially if you do a clean install, where do you want to put it, okay? And it's going to look for all the partitions on the drive that you have on your machine. And so notice on this one I only had one, and this is drive 0 unallocated space, and I had 40 gigabytes set aside out there. And so that is the one that I wanted to choose for my clean install. Now notice clean install, it's looking for free space to put it, and I got 40 gigs. It's plenty of space. I can load Windows 8. I can then load Office and all those sorts of things and take care of it from there. Alright, now once that happens, then I start to see a very familiar screen from other installations before, installing Windows, and you'll notice it's going to copy the Windows files that it needs to start the installation. It's going to get ready for the installation, then it's going to start installing features, then it will install updates, and then it will finish up. And as these complete, as you see here, you'll see little green check marks take place. Now one of the things that I noticed was quite a pleasant surprise on installing Windows 8, and by the way, I installed Windows 8 on a desktop, I've installed it on laptops, I've installed it in virtual environments, mainly in VMware environments, and this thing loads and installs surprisingly quickly. As a matter of fact, when it's copying Windows files, if you remember in previous versions it was extremely slow copying these files, it puts them on there pretty quick and installs. So anyway, let's stop right here. This will be the end of part 1. Join me in part 2, and we'll continue to go through the screens and deal with some of the questions you get offered on installing Windows 8. Welcome to part 2 of installing Windows 8. Now in part 1 we got up to the Windows setup screen where we're actually copying the installation files and then installing Windows 8, installing updates, and then finishing up. Now once that process completes, you get your first look at the graphical user interface portion of the setup, and you see the unique looking Windows 8 logo, and you will see this little animation, these little balls spinning around, and it will tell you that it's getting devices ready, and you will see various messages pop up there. And then you will get this screen to personalize. Now this is setting the colors on your start screen or that start menu screen. And you can play with these and you can set whatever you would like. You can go back and look at these later. I'll show you how to do that later on in the course. We'll talk about customizing the start screen, and you can look for that video in the course. And right here you'll give your PC a name. Now this is the NetBIOS name, if you will, and this is what shows up out there in the administrative tools and so forth. Anyway, that's the NetBIOS name for the computer. Then you'll click Next, and this is a very important screen in the setup process. And there's a little bit of, I hate to use the word misdirection here, but Microsoft's trying to help you, but at the same time some people won't want to go this route. Notice it says sign in to your PC. And it says that you can use your favorite email address as a Microsoft account to sign in to Windows. And they're telling you they won't send you spam, okay? But if you sign into Windows with a Microsoft account, you can download apps from the Windows Store based on purchasing information that you've put into your Windows account. You can get your online content in the Microsoft apps automatically, and you can sync settings online to make PCs look and feel the same. Browser history, account features and pictures and colors and so forth. And so it looks like it's the only option. But if you will go all the way down to the bottom of the screen down here, under Privacy Statement, under Sign Up for a New Email Address, and if you don't have a Windows account, you can get one right here. Right down here, notice you can sign in without a Microsoft account. What does that mean in plain English? It means set up an account local on the machine just like you've always done in the past, okay? So this is the old way down here. This is the new way. We will talk about the differences in these a little bit later on in the course, and if you go down in the course to the Windows 8 administration section, and if you'll look at videos like understanding user accounts and switching account types, you'll get a little bit more information about the differences between these. But the bottom line is, with this signing in with your email address that's attached to a Microsoft account, this is where all of your settings are being pushed up or uploaded, if you will. This will also allow you very fast and easy connection to SkyDrive. We'll talk about that later. But the bottom line here is, this is causing settings on your PC to be uploaded to Microsoft servers, and then anytime I sign in with that email address from any other PC, boom, what shows up to me once I sign in, this is really like a roaming profile over the internet. My desktop, my pictures, my browsing history, bookmarks, all that sort of stuff, Internet Explorer, it's just going to be there for me. It's actually pretty neat when you see it, but you need to understand this, and I will talk about this more later. Next, notice this one, I'm going to sign into my PC, and this is an example. I did not take the Microsoft account way. I came down here to the bottom on that previous screen. Let me go back and show you. On the previous screen, let me get back here. There we go. I clicked on sign in without a Microsoft account, and this is where it took me. I created an account name, a user password, and put a password hint. And notice, by the way, now you can't put the hint as the password anymore. That used to be a somewhat insecure trick. But if you had a test machine and you couldn't remember passwords, you could put that in there, and I've seen a lot of people do that. Next, you're going to see this cool little black screen here, and it's going to send you all kind of messages. Hang on while we're getting things ready for you, and other messages will pop up. And while it's going to give you this little tutorial on the new aspects of the way you use the Windows 8 interface, and it's going to show you how to move your mouse into any corner and see the various aspects of how the new Windows 8 interface works. Then you'll get this screen. This is the last little teaser you'll see. We're getting your PC ready. They say it'll take a few minutes. It does not. It's very, very quick. Maybe a minute, maybe two at the most that I've seen. And then the long anticipated Windows 8 start screen appears. Yours may not be this color. It depends on how you personalize it back there on the colors. And you won't have Kindle and some of this other stuff, because this was a screenshot that I took after I had installed and played with it just a bit. But you will have Windows 8 out there on your machine. And again, this is a surprisingly fast install on this. And not only that, the first time you get Windows 8 installed, if you want to be amazed, just go in and shut it down. I tell you how to shut it down, by the way, in a video out here in the course called Shutting Down Windows 8, or How Do I Shut Down. But shut this thing down, watch how fast it goes down, and then start it back up in Windows 8 and prepare to be amazed at how quickly you get the logon screen. So anyway, that's how to install Windows 8. That's the screens you can expect to see, the questions you can expect to answer, and then you're going to be in the Windows 8 world, and I think you're going to like what you see. Once you get a little bit of custom, just get a little bit acclimated to what you're looking at. So that's the basics on installing Windows 8.